Hello, damnation. I am sick. And so we are going to power through today's show because there is a lot to cover, a lot to go over, but I feel like I am moving like a tortoise. But the news cycle is not. It is absolutely effing insane. And as Cass put in the chat, I too feel like I'm living inside of a nightmare. Buckle up, dear friends. It's time for the Danielle Moodie Show. Let's get to it. Hello, hello, damnation. Welcome to the Danielle Moodie Show. As I said at the top, I am sick. I haven't been sick in quite some time, and I am going to do my best to power through because there is so much news to get to today. I pray that you all took my advice yesterday and did not subject yourself to that 19-minute scream session that Donald Trump put the nation through. We will talk about that later in the show. But at the top, new photos released today from the House Oversight Committee from the Democrats showing more of Jeffrey Epstein's sick, twisted network of powerful men, the way that they talk about women, the way that they look at women, was diagnosed in a really fantastic piece. It is a long piece. I will say, I think the piece is about a 25 minute read. And I took out some pieces of it in the New York Times entitled Don's Best Friend: How Epstein and Trump Bonded Over the Pursuit of Women. The president has tried to minimize their friendship, but documents and interviews reveal an intense and complicated relationship. Chasing women was a game of ego and dominance. Female bodies were currency. As I go through this, folks, just remind yourself, we're not talking about some, you know, celebrity, right? Some movie star, some rock star that you can kind of shrug off behavior. I did a show earlier this afternoon. I did Tavis Smiley's show, radio program, and I was on there, and one of the other guests talked about the fact that it isn't just about a double standard in the press with regard to Donald Trump. It's that he's treated like a celebrity, and a celebrity you give a lot of leeway to, right? Like, they can do drugs, they can have sex with a bunch of women, they can, be erratic, they can fall asleep in meetings, they can do all the things, right? Because of celebrity. Meanwhile, what the guest offered, Connie Ritchie, what she offered was that, and in contrast to that, the media views Biden, Kamala Harris, Obama, Bushes as politicians, that they hold to a higher regard, where there is no room for error, right? And so you have to now, she really opened my eyes to this idea of the treatment of Donald Trump as this kind of like clickbait worthy celebrity, as opposed to the president of the United States that we should be expecting more from. And so I know that we go ad nauseum in talking about, if it was Obama, if it was Clinton, if it was this person, like, what would the press be doing? And I can tell you that they would be doing the complete and total opposite. Joe Biden couldn't, just imagine Joe Biden falling asleep in a cabinet meeting. Joe Biden couldn't trip on a curb. Do you understand? Without it being nonstop coverage about his age. But Donald Trump falls asleep and the world shrugs because, celebrities, they're quirky, they're misanthropes, they're what have you. So it's really interesting to put that lens. I've always used and looked at Donald Trump through this reality TV lens, that if we weren't so celebrity obsessed, we weren't so wealth obsessed, then Donald Trump would have never become the president of the United States, because he is a joke. But now the joke is on all of us. So I move on. Nicholas Confessori and Julie Tate interviewed more than 30 former employees of Jeffrey Epstein, victims of his abuse, and others who crossed paths with Mr. Epstein and Trump. The Times also obtained new documents that illuminate their relationship. And I'm just going to go through a little bit of this piece that dropped today. Jeffrey Epstein was, quote, a terrific guy and a lot of fun to be with. He and Donald Trump also had no formal relationship. They went to a lot of the same parties, but they did not socialize together. They were never really friends, but just business acquaintances. Or there was no relationship at all. I was not a fan of his, that I can tell you. For nearly a quarter century, Trump and his representatives have offered shifting, often contradictory accounts of his relationship with Epstein. One sporadically captured by society photographers in news clips before they fell out sometime in the mid 2000s. Closely scrutinized since Epstein died in Manhattan jail during Trump's first term, their friendship and questions about what the president knew of Epstein's abuses now threatens to consume his second one. The controversy has shaken Trump's iron hold on his base like no other. Loyal supporters have demanded to know why the administration has not moved more quickly to unearth the convicted sex offenders' remaining secrets. In November, after resisting months of pressure to release more Epstein-related documents held by the federal government and facing an almost unheard of revolt among Republican lawmakers, Trump reversed himself, signing the legislation that requires their release beginning this week. And so here's the thing. AOC said yesterday that anything that happens between now and the release of these documents, you need to look at through the lens of Donald Trump trying to skirt the release of these Epstein files, trying to make huge distractions, right? Like his 19-minute bullshit address to the American people that, frankly, shout out to Gavin Newsom's social team, because they're always on it. They're like, this could have been a fucking email, right? Like, it was a waste of people's time. And I tell you, like, it's exactly the reason why I refuse to watch, right? Because I'm not going to waste my time. And like I said, I protect my energy and my home, and that motherfucker is not allowed inside. How about that? I play clips sparingly when I think that they are important, right? But at the end of the day, I'm not going to sit and listen to a full-fledged lie fest, right? Like, what value does it provide to any of us at this point? And so when I think about the things that were announced today, Hunger Games, to a boy and a girl from every state to compete against each other in the Patriot Games. Yeah, we've watched the movie. We know how that goes. Then we have the renaming of the Kennedy Center to the Trump Kennedy Center, and Donald Trump pretending that he is so just honored to have that done. As Waj always says, the verbal fellatio that people of power are doing with Donald Trump is so disgusting. And I forget who said it today on social media, but they said that naming a cultural institution right after Donald Trump is like naming a fucking library after somebody who doesn't read. Like, it's just fucking dumb, right? And so, folks, I everything, every little bit that has been coming out today, his nonsense yesterday, which I will show you two clips from, all of it is to divert our attention to the thing that he can't get rid of, which is his connection, his relationship with his best friend, Jeffrey Epstein. So I go on. Epstein had a talent for acquiring powerful friends, some of whom have become ensnared in the continuing scrutiny of his crimes. For months, Trump has labored furiously to shift himself out of the frame, dismissing questions about his relationship with Epstein as a quote, Democrat hoax, and imploring his supporters to ignore the matter entirely. An examination of their history by the New York Times has found no, so here's the New York Times doing a CYA, has found no evidence implicating Trump in Epstein's abuse and trafficking of minors. But what they did uncover is just how close they were. And so the idea that you have no idea what your best friend does for a living, how he's making his billions, and why he's surrounded by all of these rich and powerful men, why someone would say give them his estate, right, to look after as if he's some brilliant financier, which he was not, right? It's just how stupid do you think that the rest of us are? But like I always say, Donald Trump and MAGA think that the rest of Americans are as stupid as his followers are, right? Like they don't really have a lot of faith and give us a lot of credit. They think that we're just going to pick up whatever breadcrumbs they throw out at us and like, oh, that's it. Donald Trump says that they weren't really friends. Got it. And then you have pictures like this that we saw last week. Right? Here's Donald Trump. Here's the redacted faces surrounded by young girls. Right? Because again, the faces are redacted because if they were underage at the time, under 18, then it's considered child pornography to show their faces. So I even take issue with the idea that the New York Times would say that they pursued women when it is evident beyond a reasonable doubt that women were not on Epstein's menu. Children were. Beginning in the late 1980s, the two men forged a bond intense enough to leave others who knew them with the impression that they were each other's closest friend, the Times found. Epstein was then a little known financier who cultivated mystery around the scope and source of his self-made wealth. Trump, 6 years older, was a real estate scion who relished publicity and exaggerated his successes. Neither man drank or did drugs. They pursued women in a game of ego and dominance. Female bodies were currency. Over nearly 2 decades, as Trump cut a swath through the party circuits of New York and Florida, Epstein was perhaps his most reliable wingman. During the 1990s and early 2000s, they prowled Epstein's Manhattan mansion and Trump's Plaza Hotel. Prowled, right? Like the language that the New York Times is using, right? Hunting, prowling. They are predators. And these girls were entrapped with the help of Ghislaine Maxwell into cages by these men. At least one of Trump's Atlantic City casinos, I guess one of the ones he didn't bankrupt, I don't know, and both their Palm Beach homes is where they were prowling. They visited each other's offices and spoke often by phone, according to other former Epstein employees and women who spent time in his homes. With other men, Epstein might discuss tax shelters, international affairs, or neuroscience. With Trump, he talked about sex. Quote, I just think it was trophy hunting. Stacey Williams, who rose to fame as a star of the Sports Illustrated swimsuit editions during the 1990s, said in an interview with The Times. In social media posts and interviews with news outlets in recent years, Ms. Williams has described how Trump groped her in 1993 at Trump Tower while Epstein, whom she was then dating, watched. I think Jeffrey liked that he had this Sports Illustrated model who had this name and that Trump was pursuing me. She said. Trump, of course, denied the account. To shed light on their friendship, the Times interviewed, like I said, more than 30 former Epstein employees, victims of his abuse, and others who crossed paths with the two men over the years. The Times also obtained new documents that illuminate their relationship and scoured court documents and other public records. Many of the people interviewed by the Times asked to share their stories anonymously, saying they feared for their safety at the hands of supporters of Trump, a president who has deployed the might of the federal government to target and punish his political opponents. Some Epstein victims have already received death threats for demanding a full accounting of government's investigations, according to a statement released by more than 24 of them. So I want to say something about this. At the top, right, in the article, the reporters say that they've scoured everything, but that they didn't find any credible evidence of Donald Trump. None of the people that they spoke to said that Donald Trump was part of the trafficking ring. And now I want you to just now remind yourself as to what I said. Donald Trump uses and weaponizes the power of the federal government, the Department of Justice, the FBI, the CIA, against anyone that dare cross him. The only person that has continually been able to pursue and reap the benefits of pursuing a case against Donald Trump has been E. Jean Carroll, who said, much like Stacey Williams, except Stacey said that Donald Trump groped her in front of Jeffrey Epstein. We know that E. Jean Carroll was raped, that Donald Trump is an adjudicated rapist. ABC, when George Stephanopoulos credibly said that Donald Trump was an adjudicated rapist, paid him $16 million. So if you are just a regular woman now, a girl then, but a woman now, and you have memory of Donald Trump assaulting you, groping you, etc., do you honestly think that the average person is going to come out against the president of the United States, who we see has weaponized the federal government for his benefit? No. So again, while the New York Times says we haven't found evidence and no one has spoken about the fact that Donald Trump has assaulted them or groped them, the fact is that given all we've seen over the last 10 years of Donald Trump, I'd shut the fuck up too. I'd be concerned about my safety as well. So I just want to go back to what I just read and say again. Many of the people interviewed by the Times asked to share their stories anonymously, saying they feared for their safety at the hands of supporters of Trump, a president who has deployed the might of the federal government to target and punish his political opponents. Now, while others who have been targeted by Donald Trump may have the means and the mechanisms to deal with his rabid base, the fact is, folks, that the average person does not. And so we constantly, I just want to say this before I go on with this piece, we constantly put the burden on the victims, right, to bear the responsibility of telling the public openly about their trauma, reliving that trauma, then being called a liar on top of that, and worse, and then putting them in a position where they have little to no protection. So, does it make sense that folks right now are not credibly, right, stating that Donald Trump was a part of the sex trafficking network? Yeah, because he's currently the president of the United States. Makes me sick. Over the years, Epstein or his partner, Ghislaine Maxwell, introduced at least, listen to this, 6 women who have accused them of grooming or abuse to Trump, according to interviews, court testimony, and other records. One was a minor at the time. None have accused Trump himself of inappropriate behavior. And like I just stated, I am not surprised that none of them have accused Donald Trump of inappropriate behavior, because again, you are taking, credibly, folks, your life into your own hands. We know that these people are batshit crazy who are around Donald Trump. And we also know that his best friend just happened to die on his watch in a federally protected prison. Okay? So again, let's just state the obvious. None have accused Trump himself of inappropriate behavior. Sure. One of the women who has never before spoken publicly about the experience, told the Times that Epstein had coerced her into attending 4 parties at Epstein's home. Trump attended all 4, the woman said. At 2 of them, she said Epstein directed her to have sex with other male guests. And these are some of the pictures, folks. These are some of the pictures that were released today by the House Oversight Committee. There's a book, Lolita, in the back, quotes from the book. Apparently, this was the most PG one that could be released, but there were quotes on a woman, all over a woman's body, right? This is who Jeffrey Epstein is. This is who Donald Trump's best friend is. Here are other pictures. Jeffrey Epstein surrounded by young girls all around him. Okay? Here is Jeffrey Epstein with who? Donald Trump's senior advisor, Steve Bannon, in his what appears to be one of his offices. Here's another one of Bill Gates with a young woman whose his face has been redacted. And now we know, folks, that Melinda Gates, Bill Gates' ex-wife, one of the reasons that she is now his ex-wife was because of his relationship with who? Jeffrey Epstein. And while Bill Gates is like, oh, I'm so sorry for my relationship. No, you're not. You're sorry people found out, right? Like, that's what you're sorry about. You're sorry that now these pictures are going to continue to come out. That's what you're sorry about. Again, we can all look around our friend circles and be like, maybe you've had a friend or two that was like suspect, but I'm telling you that once that person, I felt that energy and knew that that person was suspect, guess what? It's a wrap for me. Jeffrey Epstein has been in legal trouble with regard to trafficking, prostitution. Like, this is stuff that is well documented. So it's not even, folks, like you can pretend and be like, well, I didn't know. I had no idea of his legal trouble. It's on the front page of every fucking paper. And why was that? Because of who ran in his fucking circle. I'm telling you, these men make me sick. And then there's this. Excuse me, folks. I apologize. I am doing my best. I am ill and I am doing my best today. This text change, this text, y'all, if you have not seen this. It is so like, oh my God. When people show you who they are, when you learn, again, I don't care if anyone has credibly come out and said that Donald Trump did anything inappropriate. If this is the kind of dog that you lay down with, this is your best friend, you coming up all covered in fleas. Take a look at this. This was a text that was released today, a picture of a text. And it says, I don't know, try to send someone else. I have a friend, Scout. She sent me some girls today, but she asks $1,000 per girl. I will send you girls now. Maybe someone will be good for Jay. The J, of course, is assuming Jeffrey Epstein. And then this is what they send. Name, 18 years old, height, measurements, weight, and what was cut off was the country that they were being shipped from. This is someone's child. You understand? Like how sick this is? This is not a modeling scout. This is a trafficking scout. And they are talking about this girl like she is chattel, right? This is what the slaveholders did to my ancestors. Name, age, weight, height. You see that the mentality of the white slaveholder has never escaped, right? They just morph into different versions, different people. It's obscene. So when the New York Times talks about, oh, they're on the prowl, they are predators, they see women as and girls as things like the table I'm talking at, right? Like a refrigerator. Just like the slaveholder saw no humanity in when looking at the enslaved, Donald Trump, Jeffrey Epstein, and all of the powerful men, pictured, not pictured, went to these parties, knew exactly who they were associating with, knew exactly what was going on. And even if they themselves did not engage, you were a party to it. You were an accomplice. And all of them should be brought up on charges. Because if you knew and did nothing, then you're a fucking accomplice. And it's sick. And this is, again, the most bipartisan group, right? These are men of faith, men of industry, geniuses, titans, scientists, authors, poets, all having one thing in common. They hate women and girls. They see us as property. And as the New York Times said, as currency to be traded, to be used, to be abused, and then to be discarded. So yesterday we went over, right? What did Susie Wiles say about Donald Trump? The alcoholic's personality. So Donald Trump doesn't do drugs and he doesn't drink. But he is an addict nonetheless, with an addict's mindset, a colonizer's mindset, a slaveholder's mindset. And that man is the president of the fucking United States. Speaking of which, yesterday's bullshit speech that evidently should have, could have been a goddamn email. And, why does Trump feel the need to constantly exaggerate about the facts about the economy? Why not just tell the American people, these are the facts? I can understand how you feel. Top Trump advisor. Well, you take a listen.
Gas prices, for instance, but why the need to constantly sort of exaggerate? Gas prices are $3, they're not $2.50. The idea of suggesting that I think a lot of the impact of inflation. Yes, some progress made, but not as much as he says. Why not just present American people and say, hey, look, these are the facts. I can understand how you feel. Why the need to exaggerate?
I'd have to go back and look at the specific language, but and I hate coming back with questions for you guys, but the president, in order to make sure that everybody understood the facts and the facts were documented, spent a lot of time with us, with our team, preparing slides.
Was he conscious? Was he awake?
The data for what he was talking about in the speech. And in some networks, while he was speaking, they showed the slides, and in some networks they didn't. And I just thought that was kind of unusual. I was expecting, when I was flipping around, to just see the slides everywhere. Gosh, we spent so much more time on them. But I think that the president had documentation for the facts that he was saying. They were in the slides. And so if there's a specific number you'd like to talk about, maybe he misspoke or something, I'm happy to.
Maybe he misspoke. God, I swear to God, I wish that I had people around me that just were, basically all of these people, you know what their number one job is? They're just fucking janitors, right? They just clean up clean up Donald Trump's shit on a regular basis. Maybe he misspoke. Like, are we all paying attention? And this guy, I can't fucking stand him because his fucking stupid smirk, Lord help me. So here is there's another clip. Fox News' John Roberts pushes Lutnick on the fact that Trump's claims about cutting drug prices by 600% are literally mathematically impossible.
Because some of them were just mathematically impossible. Listen to what he said about bringing down the price of prescription drugs. Listen here.
I negotiated directly with the drug companies and foreign nations, which were taking advantage of our country for many decades, to slash prices on drugs and pharmaceuticals by as much as 400, 500, and even 600%.
Well, if you cut something by 100%, the cost goes down to zero. If you cut it by 4, 5, or 600%, the drug companies are actually paying you to take their product. So it raises the question, how much of last night's speech was hyperbole and how much was fact?
No, what he's saying is you bring it, if a drug was $100 and you bring the drug down to $13, right? If you're looking at it from $13, it's down 7 times.
It's not a 600%.
Well, but it's 700% higher price before. It's down 700% now, right? So a $13 would have to go up 700% to get back to the old one. So it all depends on when you look at it. You could say it's down 87%, or you could say it would have to go up 700% to be the same one. So it just depends on what you look at it. But basically what he's saying, and we all know what he's saying, is we are hammering the price of.
We all know what he's saying? No, actually, we don't know what the fuck he's saying. That's why you have to come on there and explain some bullshit, right? Oh, well, we know that. No, it's mathematically impossible. I wish to God that, like, in my math classes in high school, which were terrible, by the way, I'm terrible at math. I wish that I could get away with some shit like that. Like, oh, well, you knew what I meant on the test. When, like, I did the facts and the figures wrong, like, you got it, right? Like, my basic understanding was, if he said 600%, but he really meant 87%. And like, where in life, other in Donald Trump's mind, in this fucking alternate goddamn universe, this timeline that I wish to God we were not on, could you get away with this type of fuckery and still have a job? And still be considered to like have the wits about you to do the job? It doesn't make any fucking sense. I don't know where else you could go and just blurt out numbers and blurt out lies that are easy, like, and that's the thing that was being said on MSNBC. This shit it's easily fact checked. Why does he feel the need to exaggerate in the way that he does, to lie in the way that he does? And honestly, because he can't fucking help himself. Because he is a goddamn sociopathic, narcissistic piece of shit. And he can't fucking help himself. And so we are all pulled into this bullshit. And then they bring these motherfuckers on television to look into the camera and to lie to us consistently. And tell us, well, you know what he meant. No, we don't know what he meant. Because he sounds like a fucking fool. I swear to God. I just, and then this, folks, because again, all of this stuff comes in under the radar because we are just dealing with a fire hose of fuckery on a regular basis, and we can't swallow it all at once. And so this came out, which was leaked audio of Donald Trump on December 7th, 2020, when he was not only asking the Georgia House Speaker to find him, the 11,700 and some odd votes that he needed, but then also coaching him into how to cover it up.
Cover fraud. You could say for transparency and to uncover fraud, possible fraud. So who's going to stop you for that? It's like
a federal judge. Possibly. Yeah, Mr. President.
Let me run it back again. Because, y'all, listen.
You do it to uncover fraud. You could say for transparency and to uncover fraud, possible fraud. So who's going to stop you for that? It's like
a federal judge. Possibly. Yeah, Mr. President.
And you see that dummy is just like, yeah, Mr. President, I could do that illegal thing that you're telling me to do. But I could be stopped. And who's going to stop you? Right? Because Donald Trump lives in the universe of ain't nobody going to check me, boo. Right? So who's going to stop you? And he's like, well, a federal judge. And I'd rather not go to jail. Because I don't have your resources and your celebrity in order to get me out of it. So again, Jack Smith, by the way, because I'm going to jump ahead and I'll go back to the other story that I wanted to get to. So Jack Smith, again, another story kind of under the radar in this fuck shit of a week, is testifying before Congress in a closed door session. Him, along with a couple of his deputies, have testified on this very thing that we just heard Donald Trump say on tape. But Jack Smith is being investigated by Republicans for, his false prosecution and indictment of Donald Trump because he's a Republican, not because he's an outward goddamn criminal who we just heard in his own words say, find me the votes. And then you could say to the press that, you're just opening an investigation. You could just say these things. They'll listen to you. So This is according to NPR. Former Justice Department Special Counsel Jack Smith defended his investigations of Trump, telling congressional lawmakers Wednesday that he made prosecutorial decisions without regard to Trump's political association, activities, beliefs, or candidacy in the 2024 presidential election, according to portions of his opening statement obtained by NPR. Testifying behind closed doors, Smith also told the House Judiciary Committee that his team developed, quote, proof beyond a reasonable doubt that Trump took part in a criminal scheme to overturn the 2020 election. Investigators also had, quote, powerful evidence, maybe like the clip I just fucking played, that Trump had willfully retained classified documents and tried to obstruct justice to hide that he had them. Quote, the decision to bring charges against Trump was mine, but the basis for those charges rests entirely with the president and his actions, Smith told lawmakers. Smith appeared in private before the Republican-led committee in response to a subpoena after the panel rejected his offer to testify publicly about his investigations because they didn't want him to testify publicly. Because guess who would come out looking like the fucking criminal that he is? Donald Trump. Who do I blame for this? Who do I blame for where we are? Take a guess. If there is one person that you would blame for a second Donald Trump term, who would it be? Think for a moment. Something that you put on a tree, perhaps? Garland? That is who I blame. He refused, right? To give Jack Smith, to give the Department of Justice, which was under his fucking control, the jetway, the runway that they needed in order to prosecute Donald Trump in time before he even had the fucking opportunity to announce that he was running for office. The moment that Merrick fucking Garland was confirmed as Attorney General, he should have put his foot on the fucking gas. But what did Merrick Garland do, dear friends? He waited not 1, but 2 fucking years. Because he wanted to preserve the institution that is now crumbling before our eyes. We had him. We had him on the documents that he stole. We had him on tape and trying to steal an election. But Merrick Garland, who Joe Biden appointed as some type of poetic goddamn justice because of how he was denied a seat on the Supreme Court, which frankly, I'm not quite sure he should have ever been brought up for a nomination by Barack Obama, who clearly thought that he would be a centrist good choice that Republicans would get behind. Anybody that Republican wants to get behind, I don't fucking want. Quote, if asked whether to prosecute a former president based on the same facts today, I would do so regardless of whether the president was a Republican or a Democrat. That is what Jack Smith said in his closed door hearing with congressional officials. If asked whether to prosecute a former president based on the same facts today, I would do so regardless of whether the president was a Republican or a Democrat. In addition to the portions of his opening remarks obtained by NPR, Smith is expected to use his testimony to try to correct what he views as mischaracterizations of his work, according to a person familiar with the matter who was granted anonymity in order to discuss the private deposition. That includes the special counsel offices obtaining phone records of some Republican members. I just, some days I'm happy that I still have the capacity to get as angry as I do, because it means that I still care, about this crumbling empire, that I still care about what comes after Trumpism, right? What comes after all of this is blown up spectacularly, right? Because you see, in Donald Trump's bullshit address yesterday, he said, which I took as a threat to the American people, that quote unquote, the best is yet to come. I don't have it in me, folks. I don't think any of us have it in us for 3 more years. And again, that's operating under the assumption that he's not running a third time. And by running, I mean just not leaving office this time around. But, here's the thing. What I have said many times before is this. Folks, what comes after Donald Trump, if we don't deal with this regime, if the American people don't muster the strength of other nations that have overthrown their governments by going on a national strike, that what comes after Donald Trump, if you can even wrap your brain around it, is going to be 10 times worse. And who do I think, as fucking JD Vance and Marco Rubio try and elbow each other into the line of succession in the Republican Party, who do I think could possibly find their way into a primary, find their way into the line of succession? Oh, hold on to your hats. Get your support pets and plants, because I'm about to say some shit that's going to have you all shriek. Nick Fuentes. Rolling Stone put out this piece, Tessa Stewart, on December 8th. The war over Nick Fuentes is over. He won. The right tore itself apart over Tucker Carlson's interview with the white nationalist. Trump shrugged. Now, he's everywhere. Just a few weeks ago, the Republican Party was ripping itself apart as factions moved to either distance themselves from Nick Fuentes, the 27-year-old white nationalist streamer, or to loudly announce they would never bow to the woke mob demanding they disavow the openly racist, proudly misogynist, Holocaust-denying Hitler fanboy. The outrage cycle is apparently over now, and Fuentes has come out on top. Instead of being sidelined by the uproar that erupted after his appearance on Tucker Carlson's show in October, Fuentes is now being courted by some of conservative media's biggest names. Last week, he appeared on Alex Jones's InfoWars and Steven Crowder's podcast, Louder with Crowder. Today, this was again on December 8th, he's scheduled to sit down with Piers Morgan for his YouTube show, Uncensored. The latest uproar fits a pattern for Fuentes, a merchant of young white male rage. He has not only survived repeated attempts to cancel him, dating back to his days as a college freshman, but he seems to grow more emboldened and attract an even larger audience with each attempt to make him go away. Whether Fuentes' views are worthy of condemnation is not really a question. He's called Hitler, quote, really fucking cool and cast doubt on the Holocaust, saying there was no way to bake 6 million cookies in 5 years? The math doesn't add up, he said. After breaking onto the national scene as a figure of Charlottesville's Unite the Right protest, he argued that life was better for Black Americans under Jim Crow. They had to drink out of a different water fountain. Big fucking deal. Oh no, they had to go to different schools. Who cares? Grow up. The self-described proud incel has also said rape is not a big deal. Women are too emotional to make political decisions. And he celebrated Donald Trump's defeat of Kamala Harris by tweeting, "Your body, my choice, forever." Article goes on. There was a moment a few weeks ago when the GOP appeared poised to unite in a stand against him. Cruz called Fuentes a poison, and House Speaker Mike Johnson said it was a mistake to platform him. Commentators Ben Shapiro and Mark Levine piled on, and Heritage Foundation President Kevin Roberts was nearly pushed out of his job, under fire from former Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell and employees at the right-wing think tank for defending Carlson's decision to host Fuentes. But a funny thing happened next. The leaders of the Republican Party shrugged the whole thing off. You can't tell him who to interview, Trump finally said of Carlson in November after weeks of silence on the subject. If he wants to interview Nick Fuentes, I don't know much about him, but if he wants to do it, get the word out. Let him. You know, people have to decide. Nick Fuentes is the future of the Republican Party. Because I have said that what will come after Donald Trump won't be fascist light. It will be full-on Nazi. And the fact that Republicans cowered so quickly to this 27-year-old piece of crap shows you that they constantly are in search of their next leader, their next god. Donald Trump is priming the ground for Nick Fuentes. The Republican Party is already planting the seeds that, well, freedom of speech, he can say what he wants. Tucker Carlson can interview who he wants. And because it was such a hot and talked about interview, all of the fucking grifters followed suit to get their ratings up because everything is about the fucking money. And much like Donald Trump was in 2016, Nick Fuentes, for the right, is good for business. And that's all they care about. That and power. So if we the people, don't handle this regime now, what comes next in America is going to be a Fuentes regime. And if that happens, all bets are fucking off. All of them. And so, is there anybody around? Anyone to call on who is going to fight for the people? Is there anyone who is going to do a fucking thing to defend this country? Well, if you're looking at the Democratic Party to do that, well, I got news for you.
Yeah, I mean, Democrats in the minds of the American public are lower than the Dead Sea. What are we talking about here? Well, let's take a look. The net approval rating for Democrats in Congress, you said it, Kate Baldwin, the lowest ever. Look at this. Overall, they are 55 5 points underwater. Their approval rating is south of 20%. It's even worse when you look at independents. Look at this, negative 61 points. That means that their approval rating is 61 points lower than their disapproval rating. Quinnipiac has been polling this question for the better part of the 21st century. They have never found Democrats, at least those in Congress, in worse shape than they are right now.
That's independents and overall, but what about Democrats on Democrats?
Yeah, what about Democrats on Democrats? So part of the reason overall is so low is independents are driving it low, but that's not the only reason it's so low. What about Democrats on Democrats? Democrats' net approval rating of congressional Democrats. I want you to keep in mind, they had never rated Democrats negatively until this year. And right now, what are we talking about? We're talking about a net approval rating from Democrats. This is Democrats on Democrats. Their approval rating is actually lower than the disapproval rating, and that is quite the drop from October. I think during the shutdown, there was a bit of a boost for Democrats, right? There was a rallying around the flag effect going on, but Democrats did not like how that shutdown turned out. They have returned against Democrats in Congress, and you mentioned Dan Goldman in that intro. One of the reasons that Dan Goldman is in trouble right now in a potential primary against Brad Ladner is because at this point, the Democratic base is so upset with Democrats. So even if Democrats take back Congress, don't be surprised if Dan Goldman ain't there because of numbers like this one.
And this is quite a shift that you're looking at here. I mean, so this gets to the midterms, of course. What does this do to Democrats' chances of taking back majorities in Congress?
Yeah, you know, we're talking about it. You mentioned it. What is this? 22-6. That's a 28-point decline falling through the floor. But of course, the question is, can Democrats still take back Congress, even with their ratings as low as this? The answer is yes, but in my mind, it's definitely hurting them. Why do I say that? Because take a look at the generic congressional ballot with a Republican president at this point. Look, Democrats are ahead, but they're only ahead by 4 points. Historically, that is quite weak. At this point in the 2017, 2018 cycle was more than double that at 10 points. The same back during George W. Bush's second term in office, where you saw, of course, the Democrats were also ahead by 10 points. So we're talking about a lead of less than half what we normally expect. And I think that's why, at this point, there are a lot of Democrats who might be thinking, hey, we can spike that ball in the end zone. But the numbers at this point say, hold on just a minute. Yes, you're on your way to a congressional majority, but it's still a long time. And with numbers like this, considerably weaker than historically speaking, it might be a tougher road to hoe.
I'm muted. I was blowing my nose. Um, the reason why those numbers are the way that they are right now is because of the Democratic establishment. They are the weakest, most spineless, pathetic group of people that we have ever seen. Right? Like, my God. Chuck Schumer ended the government shutdown that, again, in October was having Democrats in double-digit favorability because of their stance to protect health care for the American people. The people were on their side, and Chuck Schumer sold us out. So when folks now, in a couple of days, like myself, are about to fucking lose their health care because folks, when I tell you what the price is, you already know that my monthly bill for healthcare is $700. $700 a month. And that is going to go through the roof because of the subsidies expiring on December 31st. And that piece of shit, Mike Johnson, canceling votes tomorrow after 4 Republicans sided with Democrats to bring the healthcare vote to the floor. So now they're on an extended vacation. And when they return, those subsidies will have already expired. We had leverage. And Chuck Schumer fucking caved. On top of which, it gets worse. And this is what I'll close out with today. And I'm going to go over just a little bit, so hang with me. On top of those shit numbers, the DNC has decided to scrap its report on what went wrong in 2024. right? They were in the midst of doing an autopsy. And now Ken Martin, the Democratic National Committee chairman, said, releasing it would be counterproductive. You mean having any self-reflection on the fact that your centrist establishment bullshit is no longer working on the American people? That they don't want moderation, that they don't want to settle for the status quo, that they actually want people with a backbone, with progressive values that are going to fight for them? You mean that you don't want to examine the fact that your corporatist bullshit is the reason why we didn't win? On top of the fact that you all allowed Joe Biden to run a second time when he said that he was going to be a transitional figure and that we could have spent his 4 years really going to the mat on issues and on things that needed to get done, knowing that he wasn't going to run again, while also positioning Kamala Harris or whomever for an aggressive and thoughtful primary? You mean you don't want to do that kind of reflection and you don't want the public to see it? And then you want to know why Democrats' numbers are in the fucking trash the way that they are? So he said he's not going to publish the report. Party officials have conducted more than 300 interviews with Democrats in all 50 states to create a document that Martin had once pitched as crucial to charting a path forward. Mr. Martin will instead keep the findings under seal. He believes that looking back so publicly and painfully at the past would prove counterproductive for the party as it tries next year to take back power in Congress. Yes, self-reflection seemingly very bad for charting a path forward. So let's just keep making the same mistakes over and over and over again. Here's our North Star. Does this help us win? Martin said in a statement. If the answer is no, it's a distraction from the core mission. Folks, like I say, every day I feel, Democrats are not coming to save us, right? Democrats are not the party of resistance. They are the party of the status quo. They like to do handshake deals with Republicans at the expense of the rest of us and position themselves as the not so bad party. Well, when things are absolutely shit, I don't want something that's not so bad. I want something that's better. And what I keep being reminded by with the actions of this Democratic establishment party is that they don't want better. They want the same. They want things to go back to quote unquote normal. And the fact is, we're never going back to fucking normal, right? Because it wasn't normal for them to horse trade on our lives and our livelihood and then allow a charlatan to come in and break down democracy in the course of 10 years without any pushback. It is going to be up to us, the people, to decide when enough is a fucking enough. And I got to tell you, I have reached my goddamn limit. So what we do in 2026, and I mean beyond voting, I am once again calling for a national strike, calling for unions and civil rights organizations and women's organizations and LGBTQ organizations to all link together. We no longer have the luxury of working and pushing our siloed issues. We need to unite around, right, a multiracial democracy and doing whatever is necessary in order to actualize that truth. And that becomes, right, our anthem of toppling this fucking regime that is doing everything to destroy this country, whether it is the economy, whether it is our healthcare system, whether it's with the fucking environment, whether it's with their sadist actions against people of color, Black people, and immigrants. It is going to be we the people, not these spineless wimps who choose to do nothing but send strongly worded letters when we're in the middle of a knife fight. I hope, friends, I still have faith. I struggle with it, and you know that it is but a mustard seed. But all it requires is water. All it requires is light. All it requires is attending to in order to bloom. That's what our call is in this moment. That is it for me today, dear friends, on the Danielle Moodie Show. Thank you so much for sticking with me today as I battle this cold that I have. Before I get out of here, I want to shout out the super stickers and super thanks. You guys know this is independent media and it is people powered. Without your generosity, I would not be able to do the work that I do and deliver you the kind of news that you deserve with the integrity and passion that I do. So thank you to T-Gal. Every dollar counts. For the $2, Tiger Claw, for the $10 in my healing fund. Weather Bell, thank you so much for the $4.99. M Kitty for the $1.99. I love the fact that you like the damn digest. Folks, again, all of my content is free. So please do like, comment, and subscribe. Help feed the algorithm fairies. And if you do have the ability to become a paid subscriber over at the Damn Digest or become a paid member of this channel, please do consider doing so. Ghostface Killer, as always, thank you so much for the $5. Donna, thank you so much for the $9.99. PJ, as always, so generous. Thank you for the $19.99. And I will be drinking tea all evening. Polly, thank you so much for the $20. Christopher for the 10. D for the $4.99, and Jen Pollock for becoming a member for a month of the Danielle Moodie channel. Folks, I will be back tomorrow at 12 p.m. Eastern with Wajahat Ali for Democracy-ish Live. So do tune in. SHK, thank you for the $5. Appreciate you. Folks, the discount link for the Damn Digest is up on my page. And it's called the Damn Holiday Discount, and it is running until Christmas Eve. As always, dear friends, power to the people, and to all the people power. Get woke, stay sane, and in these extraordinarily dangerous times, dear friends, do stay safe. I will see you back here tomorrow, 12 p.m. Eastern for Democracy-ish Live, and the Danielle Moodie Show will be back on Monday, as always, 5 p.m. Eastern. Be well.